The announcer's voice slithered through the arena like a blade between ribs, sharp with arrogance and soaked in contempt. Presenting combatant number 99. Species, human. Classification, obsolete. Weaponry, none. Armor, none. Dignity, debatable. A roar erupted from the Galactic Coliseum, a stadium the size of a continent, suspended in orbit over the slave moons of Drago's prime. Millions of alien eyes shimmered in the purple dusk, their excitement feral, unhinged. The crowd came from every corner of the galaxy, warlords, crime lords, biomod freaks, nobles, gamblers, and executioners in formal wear. This was no ordinary pit. This was where civilizations crushed resistance for sport. And standing at the center of the killing ring was a human. No helmet, no gloves, no shoes, nothing but a pair of blood-stained fatigue pants tied off at the ankles and a set of wrists bound behind his back with quantum-threaded monofilament, a restraint that could slice through steel if twisted wrong. He didn't look up, didn't flinch, just stood there, feet apart, head bowed slightly, like a monk about to pray. He was lean, muscle but compact. His back was covered in a lattice of scars, surgical incisions, shrapnel divots, and brands from various torture racks. At first glance, you'd think he was no threat, just another broken piece of Earth's failed military experiment, just another prisoner sent to amuse the crowds. Until you saw his eyes. When the cameras zoomed in, the galaxy saw them. Icy, clear, focused like a rifle scope, like someone was already calculating wind speed, trajectory, and kill order from inside a skin that didn't blink. The announcer laughed again. Behold, the last survivor of Earth's Tier 1 Strike Division. Seal, they call him. Not after the animal, after the myth. Let's see how long this one lasts. The ground beneath him rumbled. A gate hissed open across the arena, and the first opponent entered. A Zarnok warlord, 10 feet tall, plated in bio-steel exoskeleton. 4 arms, each ending in a different blade. Hook, saw, hammer, scythe. It roared as it stepped onto the sand, acidic spittle sizzling against the ground, each footstep like an earthquake in miniature. The crowd lost its mind. "Make it scream," shouted a Threxian noble from the upper box. "Cut his legs first," another howled. The seal looked up for the first time. No fear, no adrenaline burst, no twitch, just a slow roll of the neck. Bones cracked like distant gunshots. Then silence. The alien lunged, screaming like a thunderstorm made flesh. The seal moved. Fast. No wasted motion. No panic. He slipped sideways, legs rotating under his torso like a predator on ice. The Zarnok missed. It turned, fast, confused, and swung again. Too late. The seal had dropped low, spinning into a sweep. His heel smashed into the back of the alien's knee joint. There was a wet pop. The creature stumbled. And in that microsecond of imbalance, the seal twisted his shoulders, letting the monofilament wrap tighten, slice, then popped his left arm out of its socket, forcing the thread down between his wrist to gain leverage. He used his own dislocated shoulder to snap the thread against the alien's blade arm. Slice, drop, freedom, blood sprayed. Not his. The alien's arm hit the sand. The seal caught it before it fell flat, pivoted, and jammed the sharpened stump into the beast's throat. The crowd went dead silent. It gargled, collapsed, dead in 6 seconds. The human stood over the corpse, breathing calm, still shirtless, still barefoot, blood up to his knees, and in his hands a new weapon. The Zarnok jagged forearm blade, snapped at the elbow joint, bone and metal fused, serrated, primitive now. He toned and raised it toward the royal box. Slowly, with purpose, as if to say, "You wanted a show? You're going to choke on it." The silence cracked into hysteria. The crowd roared. Not mockery anymore. Not laughter. Panic. Excitement. Worship. Fear. Across the stars, millions of beings watching the live feed leaned forward. On pirate channels. On shadow frequencies. In war zones and rebel strongholds. The transmission was being hacked, spread across dead worlds and burning colonies. The last seal was alive, and he wasn't here to entertain. He was here to butcher. In the galactic command box, Lord General Voltork rose from his throne. His tendrils pulsed with anxiety. "What the hell is this?" he snarled to his adjutant. "His unarmed. His supposed to be broken." The adjutant, a Saran data-drone hybrid, blinked nervously. "Sir, his adapting. SEAL conditioning, likely. Improvised combat, Phase 7. Then send in the Phase 2 enemies. I want this animal buried." "So, that's protocol breach." Voltork grabbed the drone by the throat. "Send. Oh." Back in the pit, the SEAL heard the second gate opening. Then the third. Then a fourth. He smiled. A slow, brutal smile. Not because he wanted to die, but because the weapons were finally arriving. The sand was black now, slick with alien gore, dotted with shattered armor, cracked teeth, and organs that steamed under alien moons. And the human? He stood in the middle, still barefoot, still shirtless, wielding a sword of broken alien ribs tied together with nerve cords and jagged vertebrae. His chest rose and fell. Steady, calm. This wasn't survival. This was execution. He looked up into the camera drone hovering above him. The crowd waited. The galaxy leaned in. And the SEAL whispered, "I'm just getting warmed up." The second wave came like a flood of nightmares. They didn't wait for ceremony this time. No grand announcement. No banners. No mockery over the speakers. The crowd was too stunned, too riveted. Every eye was locked on the human in the sand, standing barefoot atop the twitching body of the Zarnok champion. Blood had dried across his jawline like war paint, and the makeshift bone blade in his hand glistened with a dozen alien fluids, none of them his own. 3 gates opened at once. First came a pair of Threx assassins, thin, twitching creatures with glass-laced claws and toxin glands leaking from their jaws. Then a Grom riot beast, a hulking biped wrapped in shock steel cables, breathing so loud it drowned out the crowd. Behind them, skittering on 6 limbs, was a Velky slicer, a surgical killer, its head covered in compound eyes, its front legs ending in vibro hooks calibrated to shred muscle without piercing organs. It liked its prey alive. Longer screams. The SEAL took 1 step back. Only 1. Then he dropped into a low crouch, weight shifting onto the balls of his feet. His eyes didn't twitch. His breath didn't hitch. He stared at the incoming wall of death with a strange, deadly stillness. Like he wasn't surprised. Like he'd been expecting this. The Threx moved first, darting to his sides, claws flashing. One came in high, the other low, classic pincer attack. Too fast for most life forms to follow. But they weren't fighting most life forms. They were fighting him. He let the first claw graze his side, just a whisper of pain, and used the momentum to spin. The upper Threxes slash-missed entirely, and in that half-second, the SEAL ducked beneath its swinging arm, drove his shoulder into its midsection, and twisted. A crack. A squeal. Then he bit down on its exposed toxin gland and ripped. The Threx screamed. He didn't. The gland burst between his teeth like bitter fruit, and he spat it into the other assassin's eyes. The thing screeched, stumbled. He lunged in and kicked its knee backward until it folded with a sickening crunch, then smashed the base of his palm into its jaw. 2 down. The Grom roared and charged. The sand trembled. He turned to face it and sprinted straight at the beast. It didn't expect that. No one ran toward a charging Grom. The 2 collided, muscle against muscle, mass against speed, and the human dove sideways at the last second, planting 1 foot off the Grom's thigh and vaulting onto its back. The bone blade jabbed down into its shoulder. Not deep enough to kill, but enough to piss it off. It bucked wildly, trying to throw him off. He held firm, 1 arm hooked around the creature's thick neck, his free hand driving the blade deeper, twisting, finding gaps in the carapace. The Velky slicer saw an opening and lunged in, its vibro hooks aimed to cleave both man and beast in 1 sweep. That's when the SEAL did something insane. He let go, fell backward, off the Grom, into the air. The Velky was already mid-swing. The Grom turned to track the motion. Too late. The slicer's hooks carved into the Grom's throat, severing tendons and arteries. The beast staggered. The SEAL landed hard, flat on his back, but rolled instantly, grabbing a splintered bone fragment from the sand and hurling it like a throwing knife. The bone struck the Velky square in the central eye. It reared up, shrieking. He was already on his feet, already moving, already inside its guard. He jammed the original Zarnot blade into the Velkai's mouth, twisted it sideways, and shoved up with both palms. The hook burst through the top of its skull. It twitched, once, then dropped. The Grom collapsed a heartbeat later. The sand soaked red and black and green beneath their corpses. Silence, then the sound of a million people forgetting how to breathe. The human stood alone in a grave of his own making, surrounded by bodies still twitching, still oozing, still fresh. His chest rose and fell, not from exhaustion, but from control, like he was keeping something worse inside. A camera drone hovered inches from his face. He turned, and spit blood onto the lens. Somewhere far above, in the viewing tower, General Voltork shattered his chalice against the wall. "This is an embarrassment," he snarled. "This is not entertainment. This is a declaration of war." His advisors didn't speak. They didn't dare. The seal was now trending across the quadrant. Rebel cells were pirating the feed and broadcasting it on every illegal signal chain. Young insurgents were carving the word SEAL into armor plates. Civilized planets were watching, laughing, and the laughter wasn't for the Empire. It was for Earth. The Empire had made a mistake. They hadn't just underestimated the human. They had broadcast their failure. In high definition, back in the arena, the SEAL walked to the corpses of the Frex assassins. He knelt and began snapping bones, quiet, clinical, pulling out ray dace, ulna, femur, carving them with cracked alien teeth, binding them with sinew and cable. In 2 minutes, he had created a bladed short spear, 2 bone daggers, curved, a whip made of spinal segments, and a pair of makeshift knuckle dusters embedded with fangs. He strapped them onto his forearms, shoulders, waist, all muscle memory, no hesitation, as if he'd done it before. He probably had. He stood again, armed now, not with human steel or plasma rifles, but with the remnants of his enemies. And when he looked at the camera, you didn't see a man. You saw ritual. You saw calculation. You saw vengeance with pulse and breath. He didn't speak, but he didn't need to. The message was clear. Everything in this arena will belong to me. Your champions, your monsters, their blades, their bones, their screams. Across the stars, soldiers who had fought humans before began locking down armories. Planetary governors doubled patrols. Mercenaries broke contract and vanished. No one wanted to face him. Not now. Not after seeing this. Because the galaxy remembered something it had tried to forget. Humans weren't the strongest. They weren't the fastest. But when you trapped them, when you took away their tech, when you left them with nothing but skin, grit, and rage, they were the deadliest. And this one hadn't even gotten started. The arena was different now. The crowd wasn't cheering. It was whispering. There was no laughter, no betting, no slurred joke about Earth's extinction. Just silence broken by the hum of drones recording every heartbeat, every twitch in the sand, every drop of alien blood steaming in the heat. He stood in the center, not exhausted, not wounded, just still. Weapons fashioned from bones clung to his body like tribal armor. The bone-knuckle fists, the rib spear, the spinal whip. His back glistened with sweat and dark smears of blood, none of it his. Eyes locked forward, expression unreadable. Above him, General Voltork stared into the pit from behind a reinforced plasteel screen. The creature's tendrils curled and uncurled against his command throne. He hadn't blinked in minutes. "They're worshipping him," the general whispered, voice a mix of disgust and fear. His turned this into a shrine. The advisors around him didn't respond. Some had already muted their comms. One was quietly uploading files to a rebel node under his desk. The feed had gone viral. From pirate networks to low-orbit satellites, from rebel bunkers to dying planets scraping for one last reason to fight, millions now watched the human. Not as a spectacle, as a symbol. Voltork slammed his fist into the console. No more games. He turned to the executioner unit on standby behind the throne, a squad of elite, genetically perfected killers, the Scarborn, born from vats, grown in war, each one bigger than the last, each one with 2 hearts, reinforced bones, and minds programmed without fear. The general didn't even speak, Just gestured once. The floor rumbled. 7 gates opened this time. The Colosseum spat smoke and lightning as the Starbound entered. One wielded a hammer the size of a gunship engine. One dragged a chain of plasma-link blades. One didn't even carry weapons, just clawed gauntlets with someone else's face still stuck in the knuckles. The human watched them approach. His fingers flexed once over the bone grip of the rib spear. Then he moved. He didn't wait for them. He ran, straight at the center of the formation. Insanity, all precision. He threw the rib spear, not at a heart, not at a throat, but into the knee of the Starbound hammer wielder. The spear didn't kill. It lodged. The Starbound stumbled. And in that stumble, exactly what the seal wanted, 2 others twisted to adjust formation. A 1-second delay. All he needed. He ducked under a plasma chain swing, rolled forward, grabbed the falling hammer mid-collapse, and yanked it downward as the wielder screamed. The hammer hit the ground hard. Then the human flipped over the back of the half-fallen Starbound, landed on his shoulders, and jammed a bone dagger into both eyes, one after the other. A kill in silence. He had the hammer now. Massive. Too big for normal humans. But not for him. He spun, dragged it in a circle. The wide arc shattered bones. Dislocated shoulders. Crushed helmets. It didn't matter if it hit armor. It caved in what was beneath the armor. He used it like a blacksmith punishing reality. But he didn't keep it. Too slow. Once momentum was gone, he dropped it and pulled the spinal whip from his hip. Spun, cracked it across the face of a Starbound leaping from the right flank. The whip coiled around the warrior's throat. One yank. The vertebrae snapped. The seal lunged, using the body as a shield. A burst of plasma ripped into the corpse's back and sprayed gore over his chest. He came out the other side and kept moving. The Starbound tried to regroup, but they weren't trained for this. They were trained for squads. Structure. Predictability. He was trained for chaos. And he was chaos. The chain blade wielder lunged, slashing in a wide arc. The seal dropped to his knees, slid under the swing, and used a bone shard like a scalpel to fillet the creature's Achilles tendon. It screamed, fell. He stood, jammed the shard into its open mouth, and stumped on the base of its jaw. Skull cracked. Death! The others finally hesitated. Too late. He was on the biggest one now, 12 feet tall, all reinforced plating and rage. He climbed it like a mountain goat on fire. Up the thigh, onto the hip, onto the back. One blade into a kidney, another between the shoulder blades. It roared and reached for him. He ducked between the fingers, ripped free one of its horns, and stabbed it straight through the base of the skull. It dropped without a sound. 5 down, 2 to go. They ran. They actually ran. The crowd erupted. They weren't watching an execution anymore. They were watching a myth unfold in real time. The 2 Starbound left tried to break formation, sprinting towards separate walls of the arena, maybe to regroup, maybe to request extraction. The seal didn't chase both. He chased the one who screamed. His sprint was silent. Light, feet barely touching the sand. The Starbound looked back, and that was its final mistake. The seal dove, shoulder first, and tackled the brute so hard it rolled. Then he took out the last weapon he hadn't used yet. The broken jawbone of the Grom from the previous wave. A jagged crescent. Sharp. Cruel. He knelt on the Starbound's chest and drove it into the eye socket. Once. Twice. 3 times. Until it stopped moving. The last Starbound froze. Raised its hands. Tried to speak. Tried to surrender. The human didn't even blink. He stood, turned, and threw the jawbone. It spun through the air like a buzzsaw, struck the warrior in the throat. It choked, dropped, silence again. He was alone. The sand around him littered with corpses, limbs, shattered bone, and trails of steam. He breathed, calm. The crowd didn't cheer. It knelt. People, aliens, actual nobles, merchants, scavengers, knelt in their seats. A guard somewhere in the arena dropped his rifle and whispered a prayer in a language that hadn't been spoken in 5,000 years. In a bunker on the outskirts of a conquered colony, a child pointed to the screen and said, "His hours." Above it all, in the command box, Voltork had stopped moving. He hadn't spoken in minutes. He just stared at the screen. because now the human was looking up at him, not at the camera, not at the crowd, but at him. Direct eye contact, across the arena, through the screen, and he smiled. A crooked, cold, human smile. The kind only a species built for war could make. The kind that meant I see you. Voltork turned to his advisors. Prepare the Reaper, he said, voice barely a whisper. You can't, one of them stammered. He's not stable. He'll kill everyone. The general didn't blink. I'm counting on it. The arena lights dimmed. It wasn't part of the show. It wasn't a signal or dramatic delay. It was something else. A wrongness in the air. Like the arena itself was bracing for what was about to walk through its gates. The crowd sensed it first. Their cheers didn't fade. They were choked off, cut at the root by instinct. The same instinct that silences animals before a natural disaster. Not fear. Something older. Something closer to reverence. The pit was drenched in blood, littered with corpses, weapons made of bone and torn armor pieces scattered like trophies. The human stood in the center of it, the last of the seals, bare-chested, blood-soaked, covered in scars and breathing like a man who had nothing left to burn through except time. But even he, whatever part of him could still feel, noticed a shift. The gate across from him didn't open with a grind or a roar. It opened with a hiss. Smooth, precision-built, quiet as a throat being slit in the dark. And from it stepped a man, not a beast, not an alien horror, not a genetic monstrosity, a human, tall, lean, broad shoulders, a face half covered in carbon metal armor, the left eye replaced with a tracking lens, the mouth tight, unsmiling. His skin was paler, untouched by sun, but his posture spoke of a man born and raised in war. He wore no insignia. He didn't need one. The seal's jaw tightened. He didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even breathe, not at first. The crowd went dead still as the announcer's voice returned, shaken, for once unsure of itself. Combatant designation, classified, species, human, code name, Reaper. The name dropped like a hammer. Even across the galaxy, those watching the feed felt the chill crawl up their spines. The Reaper was a rumor, a battlefield myth, a ghost story told in deep space barracks. The soldier who turned on his own, who didn't just kill, he made legacies disappear. And now he was here, facing the last seal. The two men stood apart, 20 meters of blood-soaked sand between them. No weapons, no armor, just eyes. They didn't circle, didn't posture. This wasn't theater. This was unfinished history. Didn't expect it to be you, the Reaper said finally, voice low, metallic, laced with static. You still talk too much, the seal answered. There was a pause, and then they moved. No warning, no build-up. The clash was instant. The Reaper came in hard, fists like iron, angles tight, elbows cutting in, classic Spec Ops hand-to-hand but with augmented strength. The seal ducked the first swing, drove a knee into the Reaper's ribs, but caught an elbow to the temple on the way out. They broke apart. Blood. The seal wiped it from his brow with the back of his hand. The Reaper cracked his neck once, and they moved again, faster this time. A flurry of strikes, some caught, some blocked, most dodged by centimeters. The sound of bones clashing was like wet thunder, each blow sending shockwaves through their frames. When the Reaper landed a blow, it was like a truck hitting pavement. When the seal returned it, it was surgical, precise, designed not just to hurt, but to disable. The Reaper was stronger, but the seal was meaner. He fought like a ghost with unfinished business. Every movement had a decade behind it. Every strike had the weight of lost brothers, broken chains, scorched planets. They slammed into each other again, grappled. The Reaper locked a choke. The seal slipped it, slammed his forehead into the Reaper's nose. Heard the crunch. They staggered. The seal grabbed the jawbone blade from his side, the one he used to kill the Scarborn leader. He didn't aim to stab. He threw it. The Reaper caught it in midair, then turned it, and charged. They collided once more, and this time the blade found a home, buried in the seal's shoulder. He didn't scream, just grunted, twisted, let the pain run its course. He pulled the Reaper in by the wrist. Headbutt, 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 free, full force. Blood splattered from the Reaper's mouth. The seal dropped to his knees, wrenched a blade from his own body, and slashed upward. The Reaper caught his arm. They froze. A moment of perfect violence suspended in time. "Why?" the seal asked, voice hoarse. The Reaper didn't answer. So the seal said it for him. "You betrayed the unit. You let them take Earth. You gave them everything." The Reaper's mouth curled, just a little. "They never deserved it. Earth trained us to be monsters. I just switched leashes. You broke the code." "There is no code. Not anymore. Just power." The seal bared his teeth. "Then I'm going to snap yours." They exploded apart again. The Reaper reached for a plasma spike holstered at his side, buried under skinfold armor. Drew it mid-spin. The seal saw it late. Ducked. The spike missed. He tackled the Reaper to the ground. Rolled. Ripped a fang from his own belt, a leftover from the Frex, and jammed it into the Reaper's thigh. The Reaper screamed. The seal rolled off, blood pouring down his chest, panting hard. The Reaper limped to his feet. Dropped the plasma spike. "You won't survive this," he said. "You know that, right?" "I'm not here to survive," the seal said, dragging himself upright. "I'm here to bury the past." "Then die with it." The Reaper charged, slower now, pain in every step. The seal moved in two, chest heaving, one arm limp, the other still holding that fang dagger. They collided one last time. This time, it wasn't about speed or technique. It was about will. It was about hate. The Reaper stabbed first. The seal blocked it with his forearm. Flesh tore. He didn't stop. He drove the fang through the Reaper's throat. All the way in, the Reaper spasmed, dropped the spike. Hands fluttering, grabbing nothing. The seal leaned in, face inches from the man who had once been his brother. "I remember the mountain," he said quietly. "You begged me to pull you out of the ice. I carried you 4 clicks through snow with 2 broken ribs." The Reaper's eyes rolled. "You should have left me." "I should have." Then he twisted the fang once. And let go. The Reaper dropped to his knees. Collapsed. Didn't move again. The seal stood over him, body shaking. His shoulder was a mess. Ribs cracked. Blood in his mouth. He didn't care. The arena was silent. Then the lights changed. No color. No spotlight. Just red. Deep crimson, flooding the arena floor like an omen. Up in the command tower, General Voltork had stood. His face, if it could be called a face, was drawn into something close to panic. He hadn't planned for this. He hadn't expected the Reaper to die. He reached for the failsafe embedded in his throne, buried beneath metal, beneath systems designed by 10 dead empires. He pressed it. In the arena, the ground began to tremble, and then the floor beneath the seal cracked. A blast of heat and plasma fire roared upward. A direct orbital strike, straight from the command ship. It lit the sky. The crowd screamed. Even from their seats, the flash seared retinas, boiled air. The last thing the camera captured was the seal's body engulfed in flame. And then nothing. No feed. No transmission. Just black. Silence. Across the stars, riots broke out. On slave worlds, chains were shattered. On deep space relays, rogue AI sent a single message across every feed. He bled for US. Back in the ruins of the Colosseum, hours passed. Then something moved. Something clawed through the smoldering wreckage. A blackened hand gripped the edge of the broken platform and pulled. Ash choked the air. The arena, once a monument to power and pride, was a ruin. What was left of the command tower leaned sideways, a collapsed cathedral of shattered steel and crumpled glass. The crowd was gone. The systems were offline. Smoke poured from the ground in thin, silent ribbons. The orbital strike had done its work. The sand had turned to molten glass. The corpses were gone, vaporized. Bones melted into slag. Nothing moved. Nothing except him. A hand clawed through the rubble. Skin blackened. Fingers shaking. Nails burned away. But alive. Still alive. The seal pulled himself up from the wreckage, dragging half his body behind him. One leg barely worked. The skin on his back was scorched to the muscle. His face, raw and open, smeared with soot and blood, was barely recognizable, but the eyes were the same. Cold, focused, unbroken. He stood slowly. Every motion cost him agony, but he made no sound. His chest rose once, then again, and then he walked. The broadcast had resumed. Somewhere, a drone had survived. It captured everything, beamed the feed out across the quadrant, hacked onto every Imperial channel. They had tried to erase him with fire. They had failed. The SEAL climbed the ruined steps of the arena's outer wall, each movement deliberate, grinding, fueled by rage and marrow-deep purpose. At the top stood the remains of the command throne, and the thing still inside it. General Voltork. His armor was cracked, his lower body crushed beneath a fallen slab of ferrocrete. He tried to crawl away but hadn't made it far. His purple blood trailed behind him in thick, smoking lines. One eye was gone. The other widened in disbelief as the human emerged from the smoke. "You," he croaked. The SEAL didn't answer. He walked until he stood over the alien's broken frame, then knelt slowly. He said nothing. Voltork's voice turned frantic. "I can offer you freedom. A planet. Credits. A seat on the War Council. You could have anything. Just let this end." The SEAL stared at him, and then he said the first sentence he'd spoken since dragging himself from the fire. "This is the end." He reached down and grabbed the alien by the throat. Voltork struggled, gasping, choking. "You built an arena to humiliate us," the SEAL said, voice like grinding gravel. "You turned our dead into a game. You made children watch their fathers get gutted for sport." The alien whimpered. The SEAL didn't blink. "You think killing me ends this? You think I was the last?" He stood, lifting the general by the neck with both hands. "I was the first." And then he snapped Voltork's spine with one clean twist. The body dropped like garbage. The camera drone zoomed in. The SEAL looked directly into it. "No more arenas," he said. Then he walked into the fire behind the throne, flames still flickering from fuel lines, and disappeared. But the galaxy didn't forget. The footage spread like wildfire. From slums to shipyards, from hollowed moons to silent satellites, every living soul with eyes saw it. The SEAL dragging himself from the blast. The broken bones he turned into weapons. The monsters he put down with his bare hands. The brother he killed with grief buried under grit. And the general he executed like a war god fulfilling judgment. All of it, raw, unfiltered, a broadcast that no Imperial censorship AI could stop. They tried to pull the feed. It re-uploaded faster. They tried to spin it. People stopped believing the spin. They tried to bury it. But bones, once raised, don't stay buried. And the symbol he left behind, the last image caught before the drone cut to static, it wasn't a flag. It wasn't a speech. It was a single word, carved into the steel with the edge of a broken femur. SEAL, written in blood, on a battlefield of bones. And across systems, dozens of them, uprisings began. Slave worlds stopped sending tribute. Guards were found with their throats cut. Old resistance networks, once scattered and buried, lit up like fireflies in a war night. Every time a strike team hit an Imperial stronghold, they left something behind. A message burned into the wall. A smear read, or a rib, and always the same word. SEAL. The Empire sent more killers, more Scarborn, more war machines. They never came back. Rumors said the man was still alive, that he'd vanished into the outer systems, stitched together with pain and steel, that he slept beneath the dunes of ruined worlds and woke only to kill, that he was building something, a new kind of unit, not SEALs, not soldiers, something older, something worse, men like him, broken, unkillable, silent. They said they used nothing but what they could steal, tear, or make from corpses. They said their motto was simple: if it breathes, we can break it. But whether he lived or not didn't matter. He'd already won, because the arena was ashes, because the Empire's myth of control had been snapped like a rib turned into a blade, because somewhere, across hundreds of worlds, a boy watched that footage in secret, wrapped in a blanket, holding his breath. And in his hand, a bone, sharpened at one end, carved with 3 letters. SEAL. And he wasn't afraid anymore, because monsters bled. Because bones broke both ways, and because the galaxy had remembered what it had tried to forget. You can take away a soldier's armor. You can strip him bare. You can burn the earth beneath him and broadcast his execution to a trillion screaming mouths. But if he's human, if he refuses to break, if he's one of ours, he'll crawl out of the fire and use your bones to build his empire.